Where is home? And how do we find it? That search can take people on tremendous global journeys.
We're all travelers in this life. And we shape in our soul by experiences. There's a mystical side to migration.
The history of migration is not one people, one country, one culture, or one story.
I'm a migrant. I can connect with you. Other migrants are just like me. It gives me an understanding for other cultures. It puts a whole new dimension into my view of other people.
I'm Leo. I'm a migrant from Italy.
What part of Italy are you from?
From Abruzzi originally, which is, everyone knows where Rome is, so it's sort of the opposite Rome on the other side of the other peninsula.
Okay.
So, and it's the main city is Pescara.
Were you from Pescara?
No, we're actually from a province of Pescara, or provincial. Everything's either main city or a province of that city. So we're a Provincia Pescara, province of Pescara, which is just a small town called Latermanoppello. Yeah.
And so what was it like living there before you came out here?
Don't remember a lot, but one of the few things I do remember is, of course, seeing my grandparents and that sort of thing, and then going down to wash the clothes at the local stream. And you walk up to the stream, and so I was with my mum, and she had a basket of clothes to take, and all you see is soap suds coming down the stream. And then there'll be women there literally beating the clothes clean with a rock. And today it looks strange, but it's the way they did it.
And how much has it changed there since?
Oh, a great deal. The stream that I was talking about is now, they've closed it off and they're using the water for the town. There is a fountain, and that's very common all over Italy. You'll find fountains everywhere. Basically, the only water you do touch is the one that comes from underground, and the rest of it's too polluted. One of the reasons, yes, we do have wine from the age of 6 years old, but that's because half the time the water is not good enough to drink. It's a truism, unfortunately.
So what age were you when you migrated?
I just turned about 6 or 7, because I remember we got here in October, and then the next year I went to school. With the family, we came over in around the 68, 69.
Do you have a first memory of when you arrived here?
I remember being on the boat, me and a few kids that related to somehow. I still don't understand exactly how we're related, but we're told we're being related. And we used to muck around on the ship and seeing the movies and that sort of thing. I remember being seasick on the ship.
Okay, so which ship did you come out on?
The Achille Lauro.
And how long did it take to come out on that ship?
I think because that year the Suez Canal was closed, so it took us about a month.
Which year are we talking about?
I think 68.
Your first memories of arriving in Australia, do you have any?
Going to my uncle's house, where we stayed for the first few weeks. Somewhere in Carlton, I couldn't tell you where, but I knew it was a single-fronted house. That's all I remember. And we're all in one bedroom, and again, didn't think anything of it at the time.
Did you, at any point, if you recollect back, did you feel there was a strong difference of being here compared to being away?
Great difference. Even though when I went to start at school, it was a case of spot the Aussie. But you could tell that there was a difference between us and everybody else. Plus, there were Greeks that I've never met before. We had Greeks, Yugoslavs, and who knows what part of Yugoslavia they were from. We just know them as the Yugoslavs. One or two Russians, and a couple of people from Turkey. Yeah, so we had a fairly multicultural school.
So did you find at that point that you felt like you belonged there because of that, or you felt uncomfortable because there was a lot of different cultures around you?
Because there was other Italian kids who didn't speak English as well. We had had to first learn English and then start schooling after that, which I think didn't help. It sort of set me back a lot, and I caught up in later years because I didn't do many studies at all until I left school, and I left school at 15 to start my first job. Then I started reading. When I left school, my writing's still horrible, but my reading was absolutely rubbish. I couldn't barely read, and then I started reading novels, and I taught myself that way. Sven Hassel was my main person, who was a World War II writer. He had about 12 books. There was a second-hand book dealer down the road from my house, and I used to frequent there quite often. Also collect Mad magazines and that sort of thing.
So you were suddenly kind of immersed in a lot of other culture through the literature you were looking at. How did you feel at, say, that stage of your life, late teenage years, about being Italian and being in another country? For
quite a while I felt like a lost soul, that I didn't really belong here. And a couple of years earlier we went back to Italy for my auntie's wedding, and I really didn't belong there either. You'll find that's with a lot of Italians, a lot of Greeks, that we don't belong either country. My parents came here because of a need. There was no work in Italy. They either stay in Germany or go someplace else. And I think it was because of my uncle, who already migrated here, wrote to my mum and dad and said, listen, there's a great place to bring up kids. Come over. And we did. Even though he left and went back with the taxman chasing him. In Italy, it's a system of you get jobs because you know someone who knows someone. We don't belong either country. In Italy, it's a system of you get jobs because you know someone who knows someone. You get things done because you know someone who knows someone. Here, you get a job because your resume says you're good enough to do it. It doesn't work like that over there. Everything's done by favours. You don't get a plumber unless you know somebody whose father, son, whatever's a plumber. Or you went to school with somebody whose uncle was a plumber. So you get him because you went to school with this guy and his uncle's a plumber. And same as carpenters and so on.
So your sense of community connection in your original culture is really quite powerful because it's really how you get on in life.
Italians, my generation, we find we're a bit sort of old-fashioned in a lot of ways, but we keep our word. We give our word, we keep it to the best of our ability. And it's a do-or-die sort of situation. And that's why we're careful not to give our word to just anybody.
And on that, you were telling me earlier about this saying that you...
The doveri. When at the radio, first time I heard the word doveri was when I was very young, and Mum was saying, to do something and to do my doveri, or my obligation, or what you know what to do it. And even back then, was about 8 or 9, I realised that do what you have to do, otherwise you're not told off, but you sort of felt bad because you haven't done what you're supposed to.
Do you think that applies to the culture you've now been living in for these years?
It does here. I don't know so much about in Italy. Maybe, they've progressed in a lot of things where we haven't. My type of Italian that I speak is not the Italian they speak in Italy now, especially even in the areas where I came from. They have progressed. They have, their Italian is proper Italian, where most of our Italians here speak dialects. And these dialects have been dead for 40 years over there. Even my grandparents, I remember my first wife was Italian, She was here on holiday, and we met, and we got married within 6 months, and we went back together, and basically to see everybody before somebody passed away. And she used to translate my Italian to my grandmother because of my dialect. And I used to think it was crazy, but I thought, I know I'm saying the right thing. But actually I wasn't. It was sort of, the dialect was, I've learnt a lot since by listening to Italian music, to listening to the Italian news sometimes, and how they speak it. And they're so much clearer than I used to, what I used to speak. And the words were different. And, again, because they have TV now, they've got radios, they've got newspapers, so even the older ones have progressed in their language. We got nothing when we got here. We just, my uncle picked us up at the port, and that was it. And then Mum and Dad realised, hang on, we can apply for subsidies here, for the child endowment. It took a while before they realised that, hey, they give us money for having kids, And then I think Mum and Dad were here about 15 years before they realised there was a doll.
Is that because of the language issues? Or?
No, just didn't even think people paid you when you're off work. They didn't realise it until 15, 20 years later that, hang on, there's a doll here. Because Dad was out of work, and they were telling him, go to this office and do the forms. And he goes, why? Oh, you get paid every week. I said, no. Yeah, true. But all his friends worked. We worked. Once I left school at 15 and went straight into a job. My brother went straight into a job. My sister went straight into a job.
Is there any difference, say, then to now in feeling or being known as a migrant?
A big difference. Back then, again, I didn't feel like an Australian. And I definitely knew after coming back from Italy, I didn't belong in Italy. For a long time, that was a problem. And a few of my friends had the same situations. We sort of, again, we're like lost souls.
So how did you resolve that? You kind of just went back to integrating yourself only with the Italians?
Well, I myself started going back to, so in my 20s, I lost a lot of the Italian ways. 30s, even less, but then 40s, now 50, I'm going back to them. And for example, I'm making my own arancini now. I'm making my own pasta again. It's something I used to hate doing mainly because Dad was very staunch Italian, and he had to have pasta every day, and on average 4 times a day, and always had to be homemade. So I made it. My mum made it. He made it. My sister made it. My brother used to make it. And when you get told to do something, and you do it without question, because again, that was a dovere, because your parents asked you to, you did it, but you didn't like doing it. Now I'm realising that how much better it is, than just normal parts, even the fresh stuff you buy. Making your own at home is so much better.
So you're telling me you've taken over the ownership of being Italian again in your later years?
Yes.
Do you know why that might have been?
I think not being an Italian had a hole in my soul, I guess. Being Australian, not being Australian was wrong also, but sort of to mix them in together, and now I get confidence has a lot to do with it. It's in yourself, and to be an Italian is not easy sometimes.
Being an Italian or being a migrant?
Being a migrant Italian, I guess. Yes, it's not easy. We're pretty much in a strange country. Our kids, though, you find our first generation kids, no problem. To the extent that some of our kids don't even speak Italian. My firstborn speaks it and understands it. My secondborn only understands it. He can't speak it. And that's saying a lot for you thinking that my first wife was an Italian. We spoke English at home because my firstborn son, Anthony, when he went to school, he was having trouble. And we spoke Italian at home. So we had to change to English. So it fit in. And like as it was a problem for me when I was growing up, it started becoming a problem for him as he was growing up. And I thought, no, I can't let that happen. So we spoke English at home and only English. And he came good.
Some migrants from some cultures would really feel pressured to improve not only their lives, but those connected in their family. Mm-hmm. Is that true for an Italian migrant?
It's more natural than a pressure. We feel it as something natural. We don't need to push this. We just do it. You know, we go to work. If we're sick, we go to work because our parents, when they were sick, they went to work. You know, there was no thinking of, oh, I'm not feeling well, I'm not going to work today. You know, I'm a bit hungover, I'm not going to work today. It doesn't happen. You don't drink until the weekend because you don't want to go. You want to go to work the next day.
So that ethic comes out of the Italian culture.
Absolutely. Well, the migrant Italian culture, not so much over there.
Right.
They have a lot more rights, I guess, and they take them more seriously. You're allowed X amount of days off, and probably about I think 18 days a year. We only get 7 days a year of sick leave. They get 18, so that they've changed. We've not. We're still the old mentality. Is the proper word for it. It's a mentality.
And was that quite different to those around you of this culture?
Well, all my Italian friends know exactly what I mean. All the people I know that are Italians will know exactly what I mean. But an Australian say, "Hang on, you're sick. You're going to work? What's going on here?" And I've had that many times told me by people I've been with.
And you don't question it yourself? You
don't question it at all. There's no question about it. You got to work because your boss relies on you. Because being from two countries now, I feel like I can easily adapt to any country I choose to.
How important is it as a migrant to sort of make something of yourself? Do you think that is important, or do you think if you'd stayed in Italy, that pressure wouldn't have been there, or it would have been there more?
In Italy, the pressure is here. It is a lot more here too, because you come here virtually with a suitcase, and that's it. You've got nothing left. My dad was lucky enough to have money sent to him from Italy, and when I was, and bought himself his first car. But then we had to sell it because he didn't have a license. When my parents came here, like I said, they only had a suitcase. And coming from nothing, you try to make sure you don't go back to nothing.
Was there pressure when your family came out to actually help others back in Italy? Or?
Yes, we did send, actually, when my dad was in Germany, he used to send, and him and his friends used to send money not just to his parents, but to the council to help build roads and things. Yeah, it's strange. But they would send money back for the council so they can, say, help with the school, help with this and help with whatever.
Was that again a form of that cultural obligation?
Yes, it was a cultural obligation, not some or doveri, but not it wasn't spoken. They all did it.
The experience you're talking about, being Italian and leaving and then going back and finding it so different, do you think that would apply to Italian migrants in a lot of other countries in the world?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I've met American Italians who went back and had a good conversation with them when I was there last time, when I was in my 30s. And it wasn't surprising. It was sort of very similar to what we were experiencing here. The parents would go back because they wanted to die where they were born, and which is fair enough. I mean, a lot of Italians, the older Italian generation, want that. The younger Italian, no, this is where this is our home. We're Australians. If say there was a soccer match between Australia and Italy, we'd have a hard time burrowing for Australia. But we are Australians.
Italians that have migrated to America have become more integrated into kind of an American version of it?
Absolutely, yes. The Americans tend to, if you don't become a full American, you don't do well there. You have to be the American dream, the American, let's say, persona. Where here you're allowed to be yourself. We're allowed to be the old Italian. That sort of thing. Even you see it on TV all the time. These are so-called Italians from America aren't the Italians here.
So in some ways you could almost stay Italian within a new country.
Absolutely. Everywhere you always had somebody who spoke Italian, so you never needed to learn. Your pharmacist spoke Italian, your butcher spoke Italian, your hairdresser spoke Italian, and your greengrocer spoke Italian.
And that meant for Italian culture, you could not necessarily integrate with other cultures.
Absolutely not. No, you don't need to. Unless you really wanted to, you don't have to.
And that's still the case after how many years?
Oh, after 40, 50 years. Yeah, still the case.
In other cultures, they migrated out, spent 20, 30 years, had their family, built some income, then they go back to their home country. Not
Australian Italians. Most of us stayed. Very few of us went back. A couple of them I know that have gone back and come back again. A few more years. I want to go someplace, maybe Cambodia or someplace, and teach English. Not go to the trendy places like Thailand, Phuket, etc. But once I've got the qualification, I can go over there, and my partner, she's a teacher, and she's already got a TESOL course. It's good money and everything, but I want to go where the money isn't as good, but they need a helping hand. And hopefully give back something to the world, I guess, not just society.
But your background's not been in that because you ran a business for a long time. Yeah.
Very long time. Cleaning company. Had up to 15 people working for me at one stage. But it sort of, because I did my studies, it sort of opened my mind up to different things. The more you study, the more it changes your thinking. My brother has got he's got a degree is a viniculturist, or professional winemaking. Well, he's using that now to make apple cider vinegars and expanding to other vinegars as well. So, he's used what he's got.
All of that's occurred, you think, because your family migrated?
Yes. We'd never have done it over there. Apple cider vinegar is probably not even heard of in Italy. Here, it's got many health benefits, and that sort of thing. And alternative cultures are predominant here. There is one culture, and that's Italian culture. You have to make your home where you are. You can't sort of keep dreaming of someplace else, or you never get settled.
Do you feel that there's a difference in you because of that, being a migrant?
Very much, yeah.
It's a hard thing to explain, but do you know how you feel about that?
I believe being a migrant has made me a better person, more open-minded. Because when I went back, my cousins, very close-minded, very Italian-orientated, and that's it. There's no other thing than Italian.
So do you think you've become more adaptable as a person?
But, yeah, very much so, yes.
And the certain wanderer aspect of you feel like you could wander into Cambodia and live there and teach English?
Without a problem. Because being from two countries now, I feel like I can easily adapt to any country I choose to. And it'll be a choice now, not something you have to do. My parents came here to have a better life. If we go overseas, it's because of a choice. You want to help other people have a better life, not because you want a better life. We've made our home here. this is it. There's no going back. I'd want to die here. If I, grow older and eventually die here. No intention to go back to Italy or anywhere.
Now, is that because this land has embraced you, or is it because you feel this is a homeland?
I feel like this is my homeland. Yeah.
You were certain about that. So
oh yes.
Why? Why do you say?
It's just the way I feel. This is home, and it will always be home.
So even if you were to move on, you would always feel this would be the place.
Exactly. When I think of home, I think of Australia.
But isn't that a kind of schizophrenic thing? Because you're an Italian, you tell me.
Yes, it is more or less. But you have to be an Italian to understand it, I guess, or a migrant to understand it.
If you believe you have an interesting migration story to tell, contact us at this email address. We'd like to represent as many nationalities as possible in this program.